I'm Agent Morris with the NSA.
There is something real here.
Did you believe that our government is in possession of UAPs?
Absolutely, based on interviewing over 40 witnesses over 4 years.
And where?
I know the exact locations, and those locations were provided to the Inspector General and some of which to the intelligence committees. I actually had people with the first-hand knowledge provide a protected disclosure to the Inspector General. Biologics came to some of these recoveries. Yeah.
Those could represent exquisite new adversary technology.
Non-human, and that was the assessment of people with direct knowledge on the program I talked to that are currently still on the program.
The government is covering up some level of its knowledge and understanding about what some of those things are.
The Sol Foundation, which just announced a new initiative for UFO research and policy.
It's nuts, man. I mean, we're just small-town buds who saw a UFO in the woods. I mean, now we're hanging out with the government.
Wow. What floor were you guys on?
Welcome, everybody. This is Smiles Lewis. Welcome back to another live edition of Anomaly Now, straight out of Austin, Texas. This is the weekly live news roundup show for the 501c3 nonprofit Anomaly Archives Scientific Anomaly Institute that I founded in 2003. So she's sitting here in our 21st year anniversary of the existence of the nonprofit. And we've been on a little bit of a hiatus. I hope you didn't miss us too much. I mean, I hope you missed us desperately. I took some time off, had a great time visiting with old friends and having just a dandy fine time. Was lucky to be reunited with some good old friends, good mates. Greg Bishop and Robert Larson, two of the three original founders of the 1990s zine, The Excluded Middle, that was my entree to so much weirdness and so many good, long-lasting friendships. I hadn't seen my dear Robert Larson in person since, I think, 1999. Of course, he and I interacted many, many times in the years since then with his previous radio show, Cartoon Pleroma, and then his post 9/11 show, Out the Rabbit Hole, which was a parapolitical talk show dealing with all the things that were rippling, reverberating around the world post September 11th, 2001. And he's been reunited with his punk band from long, long ago and is doing music again. It was just so fantastic to see him. And of course, Greg Bishop I had seen 2 years ago at the inaugural Rice University grand opening of the Archives of the Impossible. Jeff Kripal's amazing contribution to the UFO, esoterica, occult community scene, the growing archives across the planet that are dedicated to documenting anomalous and preserving anomalous-related evidence, testimony. So from Sweden to Houston to Austin to New Mexico to, well, several other points around the globe, but those are the main epicenters, right? Woo! So we just briefly, I went out to California, flew into LA, got to see a rocket launch over Los Angeles, got to get a little bit of experience there in LA the first night and the last night. Spent a week mostly out in the desert in the tiny little cinemaphile town of Lone Pine, California, in the shadow of the highest peak in North America, Mount Whitney, within 100 miles of the lowest point in North America, Death Valley. Both places, Lone Pine and Death Valley, were home at this time to anomalous lakes. That the one outside of Lone Pine, Owens Lake, hadn't been there in about 100 years, back since when Los Angeles stole all its water. and created a health problem there with the dry lake bed at Owens Lake and Lake Manly out in Death Valley, where, normally you don't think about there being any water. Usually there's a tiny little bit, I believe, but this is more than there's been in a long, long time, due, of course, to the atmospheric rivers and other inundations that have happened in the last 2 years. So extreme weather much, but it was fantastic. It was wonderful. Lone Pine, if you don't know, look it up. It's a historic cinematic town where hundreds, thousands of films and TV shows and commercials have been filmed and are still being filmed. It is very iconic. You have absolutely seen something that was produced there or had a scene shot there. But it was just great being with good old friends and seeing things I'd never seen before and just hanging out and relaxing. And then upon getting back, one of my other longest term friends, one of my best friends that I've known since 1989 or 88, was finally getting married, and whoa, what a fantastic wedding it was. And I'm so happy for he and his bride and all of our community of friends. And I got to see, again, some friends I hadn't seen in a long, long time, and it was just very heartfelt and wonderful. But been just rare to get back here and talk to you all about the crazy stuff. Hey, so yeah, the revelations, the disclosure, it's happened. Yay! Disclosure finally happened. The walls have come down crashing, and the revelations from the inside of the government have finally happened, haven't they? Well, yes, everything changed after Grush. What's new there? Well, we'll get to that. But for those who aren't familiar, or if you are, well, here we go. The usual drill. You can go to our website, find out more about us. If you aren't aware, we are a nonprofit that's focused on the preservation of anomalous materials, whether it be UFO-related, consciousness-related, parapsychological phenomena, paranormal, ghosts, hauntings, crop circles, Bermuda Triangle, just anything weird and wonderful that typically has some kind of connection to the weird, wild world of UFOs, flying saucers, unidentified what's-its, modernly referred to as UAP, PPP, UApologists, And over at our website, you can find all kinds of links to past events and information about our collections. We have over 7,000 books, thousands of periodicals, and we are still desperately trying to find an affordable place in Austin that doesn't really actually exist. So we're looking for an anomaly here in Austin, Texas. But there's going to be some big news coming up soon. Let's just put it this way. I'm going to have a lot more free time and energy to devote to my passion, my bliss, the Anomaly Archives. What could possibly cause that? Well, we'll tell you sooner or later. And there'll also be some big news about upcoming events that are going to be happening on a much more regular basis. We're going to be doing a lot more different shows and interviews, all that kind of stuff. A lot of great stuff in store for you. From the website, you can scroll down and see the link to our Anomaly Archives Flipboard. These are all the links. Well, these are just the first top 10 or so, but you can link there and go to our flipboard.com/@Anomaly Archives. And there is a link there to the thousands and thousands and thousands of articles that we've been throwing there into the feed for quite a long time. So much great stuff. As often is the case, I barely have time to catch up on most of this stuff. Ex-CIA psychic claims he has identified, sadly, where a missing toddler was. Oh, guess what? It's Ed Dames. Yes, Ed Dames, remote viewer, is back in the news, and he apparently had a hit, sadly, with a very tragic event, I'm sure. Our good friend that we mentioned, Greg, has made an appearance recently on the Conspiranormal podcast, and a fantastic book, Saucers, Spooks, and Kooks by our good friend Adam Gorightly, has been written about because of its revelations by good old Norio Hayakawa. Startling final confession made in 2015 by the enigmatic Tal Levesque, one of the initial originators of the entire Dulce Base myth. Highly recommend that. Some great revelations there. And of course, again, by our good friend Adam Gorightly, and mentions good friend Greg Bishop. So much stuff to go into. But you can just scroll and scroll and scroll and scroll and scroll. There's just, it goes on and on. There's just so much there. Look, a big fish. Man catches 70+ pound catfish at Waterloo Lake. It's literally the size of a small child. he threw it back in after he took his pictures. He released it. Good for him. And this Bangor building added to National Register of Historic Places. Why did I include that? Well, that's going to be the new location for. You can see it right there. There's the sign for the International Cryptozoology Museum. And who is that? That's, of course, Lauren Coleman's awesome nonprofit that is devoted to preservation and public education on the subject of cryptozoology. They've got a big event coming up later this month, April 26th and 27th. You can get your tickets over at simpletix.com. We'll post the link in the show notes after the show and in all the subsequent podcast re-syndication links that you can get your podcast. If you're not watching this, you're probably listening to it on Spotify or one of the other podcatchers out there. Another event coming up much sooner this coming weekend is here in Texas, down in the south of the state, where it is a UFO mecca that's been having this City of Edinburgh's UFO festival that's been going on for quite some time now. Noe Torres has been like the main driving force down there. And this is like kind of like one of the few remaining like classic old school UFO conferences. I mean, I know there's Contact in the Desert, and I know there's the UFO Congress, but these are like the local town, Edinburg, is really involved in this and helps put it on. I think they're going to have a drone show. There's some great speakers, including David Marler of the fantastic National UFO Historical Records Center, UFORHCI, I forget exactly, but he's the leader of the fantastic UFO preservation nonprofit there in New Mexico, not, of course, to leave out the Roswell Museum and Library. So those are some events that you may want to check out coming up soon. And like I said, there's a ton of other stuff happening over at the Flipboard that you can find out more about. So yes, I was mentioning the UFO thing. Yes, I had to do a little re-edit there with the intro and show the clips, those enigmatic clips of Grush and Graves and the fighter pilot whose name is eluding me at the moment, but who testified in front of Congress, and that a lot of hay has been made about that. And of course, this has led to all kinds of rancor in the UFO community, such as it is, involving, of course, the very negative information posted in the Department of Defense All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office report on historical record of U.S. government involvement with unidentified anomalous phenomena. We'll be posting the link to that PDF in case you haven't seen it. I believe it's like 63 pages. It's a bit much. And honestly, from what I've read of commentary on it, I'm pretty much both, as usual, I'm a fence sitter on this. 50% of me is like, yep, sounds about right. And the part that I think they got right is that this is largely the result of the echo chambers of UFO activists who have long been involved in trying to suss out these alleged government, corporate, reverse engineering UFO programs, crash retrieval programs, all of which I think are entirely possible, highly probable. And in some cases, I've been really anxious, hoping that maybe something would be revealed in all of this testimony. But so far, the authorities, the man is keeping us down still. They're not revealing the truth that we know, that there are extraterrestrials, interdimensionals, time travelers, whatever the heck they are. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I really do think there is an echo chamber. I think there's a lot of very dangerous rhetoric being thrown around by the activist proponents. I've seen several of the leading lights, air quotes, scare quotes, in the UFO community, basically practically calling for Kirkpatrick's head. I briefly showed there this theguardian.com article headlined, "He quit heading the Pentagon's UFO office. Now a report of his has shaken up ufology." And its second headline, "Sean Kirkpatrick has faced threats for his work, and a new report concluding no evidence UAPs represented extraterrestrial tech has sent ufology into a tailspin." Well, certain sectors, perhaps. But after reading this, I got all the way to the bottom and saw something interesting, because when the link to this was sent to me by a loved one, the headline was basically something to the effect of, "Ufologists break into house of former AARO director, which, if you go down to the bottom, this article and its headline were amended on 22 March. Previous version misquoted Sean Kirkpatrick as saying a UFO fanatic tried to break into his home. Instead, a ufologist only showed up at his home. Obviously, with the there's been really a constant drumbeat from the mainstream media and the government about conspiracy theorists and how UFO people or fanatics implicated in that. And of course, they're alleging that there's a conspiracy to cover up the truth or to cover up information about these phenomena, about whatever it is that are plaguing our skies and occasionally crashing like everyday cars. But yeah, then they print a retraction, and yet that headline was still circulating at the time that I read that when it included the retraction. So that's almost its own form of misinformation, disinformation being perpetrated by the mainstream media over and over and over again. No surprise there. I'm shocked. I'm sure you are too. You're going to write your congressperson and say, hey, get your lapdog media back on the leash. I think they're well on the leash. Thank you very much. Meanwhile, you've got great folks like Dr. Massimo Teodorini giving his impressions of the AARO report, which you can read over at his website, massimoteodorini.com. Of course, we'll post the links there. And I've seen other people's commentaries about the report, basically saying, well, there's nothing new here. But the most interesting thing is, again, in contradiction to those clips from Grush in his congressional testimony, he keeps saying that I've delivered, these witnesses to AARO, to the director of intelligence, and they've given their testimony. The AARO report is saying, nope, that never happened. Sean Kirkpatrick is saying, nope. We kept trying to get him to bring these people to us or for him to come to us, and that he wouldn't. Who to believe? Not really sure. Again, just be agnostic, Can't you have two contradictory ideas in your head at the same time? If not, get out of this game. All right. The other thing I really want to show tonight, and there were so many news links since it's been so many months that I wanted to cover, and there's not going to be any way to do that, but that's what I'm trying to show right there. This guy, Ben Jordan. May never have heard of him. This is his YouTube channel, youtube.com/@BENN, 2 N's, Ben Jordan. And I had subscribed to his channel because of an episode I saw several months back that immediately intrigued me. And it was about an acoustic weapon he had created, an acoustic device he had created that was called something like the speech stopper. I don't know. I'm not immediately seeing it, but it caught my attention because it talked about this idea of, I believe, using hypersonic sound. That's the wrong word, but there's a certain type of acoustic effect that's been known for a long time and used in various contexts. I wrote a big, long article about it and its connection to the ideas of mind control and psychotronic technologies. And it's basically a way of like shotgun laser directing like sound to a specific location, so that if a person walks through that beam of sound, that area of sound, they will hear whatever you want in their head and nobody else around them can hear it. It's very directed. Anyway, he created one of these where he would do a feedback loop. And if you've ever experienced this, you know exactly what I'm talking about. But it's that kind of thing where you're hearing an echo of yourself that's just a skosh out of sync, and it will immobilize you. You will not be able to think clearly enough to continue speaking. And so he did a little experiment where he basically said, I'll give you $100 or however much. So he'd give you some gift if you won the challenge of being able to read a paragraph while being subjected to this. And only one person out of a whole bunch was able to do it. And they have some very interesting, peculiar qualities to them. But anyway, lo and behold, some months later, a certain acoustic mystery hum investigator, Steve Kohlhase, sent me the link to this one here. The Sound Making People Sick, also titled The Controversial Sound Only 2% of People Hear. It was released a month ago. It's gotten 2.4 million views. I think that's quite a lot more than any of his other yeah, that's a lot more than any of his other videos. I highly recommend his channel. All of his areas of discussion are interesting. He produces good content, but this video, it's about 33 minutes long. It is the best thing I have seen on the mystery hum produced to date. And for those who aren't really familiar, you go back to the 1990s and the rise of the X-Files. You probably might have heard back then reference to the Taos hum or these other hum sounds that are associated with specific locations where typically some portion of the population would be able to hear it, whereas others could not. But in the best scenarios, or the worst, depending upon your perspective, the mass of people could hear it. It could be recorded. It was not something plaguing one person or one household, causing and nobody else being able to hear it and causing them to feel isolated and made to feel insane sometimes, or driven to terrible acts, including trying to move away. Well, Steve Kohlhase sent this because he really appreciated the quality of this little mini documentary, but was also interested to discover that one of the main hypotheses being put forth by this Ben Jordan is basically Steve Kohlhase's gas pipeline syndrome, GPS hypothesis, that these sounds in a lot of cases are being created by the resonance in these massive gas pipelines that crisscross the countries of the world, the developed countries, and that Steve Kohlhase long showed that if you overlay like population centers and maps where people have recorded these experiences of the hum, you would see a correlation with these gas pipelines. He's very convinced of this, and I think it's a very compelling argument, and so does Ben Jordan. And you do get the impression that this is the main crux that Ben thinks is at the root of the phenomena. But then he also says, you probably think that, but I don't. I think it's perhaps the best thing we can test for, but he thinks it may actually be something else or multiplicity of sources. Anyway, highly recommend it. Again, I'll put the link in the show notes. But, this reminds me, and probably you, of all the recent media attention to something that's been getting a lot of media attention over the last 5-6 years or so, havana-syndrome. And sure enough, there has been a number of articles that have come out recently. And the main one, so there's been a new report put out by The Insider, 60 Minutes, and Der Spiegel. This is one version of the article here. Unfortunately, these all came out on what day, do you think? April 1st. I don't think this is a hoax. I've seen no indication of that yet. I have not yet been able to see the 60 Minutes video for this investigation, but this article, I also have links to Newsweek and other news outlets. This article here at The Insider, that's theins.press, has the headline, Undercover Chef, How the FBI Interrogator of a Russian Spy Arrested in Florida Later Came Down with Havana Syndrome. Now, it's a very interesting investigation that seems to have uncovered a Russian operative who was operating here in the United States, posing as a highly skilled chef at several Russian food restaurants, who was arrested after a high-speed chase, speeds in excess of 110 miles an hour, supposedly footage of him on his cell phone as he's going in oncoming traffic and dodging the cops who are going after him. And then when they get him out of the car, when they finally get him, he's got all kinds of burnt documentation, multiple bank cards showing money in the amounts of at least $75,000, strange computer devices. He's wearing glasses, and they say that they put him in the car. So let me just read this part here. The name on the passport is Vitaly Kovalev, born in St. Petersburg in 1985. He has a green card and a New York State driver's license. Answering his arresting officers, Kovalev speaks in near perfect English, saying yes when the deputy reads him his Miranda rights and asks if he understands. He doesn't have to say anything to the police, but he talks anyway for nearly 45 minutes in a combination of conversational Russian and English. What's truly bizarre is that he's talking to no one in the vicinity. His chatter is all captured on an onboard camera in the back of the cop car where Kovalev is sitting, handcuffed, while the police officers are scouring through his bags, belongings outside the car. But Kovalev's pauses and responses make it seem as if he's conversing with someone. Yes, because this one, he drove here too, Kovalev says, because it's necessary to, needs 20, mistakes are unknown, 16 is fucking a lot, yes, 5, he could hold 5, If weaker, 4. 4. He has no known devices on him after the arrest, no earpiece connected to a cell phone. He is wearing casual clothes and a pair of eyeglasses that are slowly descending down the bridge of his nose. An agreement is an agreement, Kovalev says. An agreement is an agreement, he repeats over and over again. I didn't kill anyone. I never killed. No, here, I'll be very sad. Then I'll go to Russia. At this point, his glasses fall to the floor, and coincidentally or not, his chatter ends. Shades of all the VR, AR, augmented reality glasses that are on sale now. Some kind of headset talking to him through his teeth. Or he's just crazy. Well, basically, it appears that he had enough money to get himself out of jail on bond, but didn't. And he goes to prison or jail in Florida from June 2020 to August 2022. And basically, it seems that he definitely seems to be a Russian operative, has engineering skills from a Russian naval engineering institute that they mention has credits with like acoustic weaponry or acoustic technology, among other things. But one of the FBI interrogators ends up being an apparent victim of quote unquote havana-syndrome. And so they talk about her experiencing of this. And yeah, she thinks it's retaliation. Anyway, very interesting case. Goes on to the operative, goes back to Russia, even though the FBI is like, you probably don't want to go back there because you're known to have talked to us. And then he heads to Ukraine, unsure whether he has been assigned there or is going there on his own, and dies, air quotes again, which, of course, anybody who's researched espionage knows that that's kind of like, if you're trying to track somebody and then they go to another country, you lose track of them, and then a death certificate is issued, and like, were they actually killed? Did they actually die? Or was that all contrived to, wipe them off the map, and that they're actually still out there doing the thing? Who knows? Other agents apparently approach this investigation and say that they recognize him from other operations and that he does seem to be connected to this havana-syndrome. I don't know what to make of it, because I've also read plenty of other things that purport to disprove havana-syndrome as anything other than mass hysteria on the part of the alleged victims. And, as somebody who published a zine called ELF Infested Spaces about mind control technology, psychotronic technologies, and all the different ways that electromagnetics and acoustics can be utilized to affect psychophysiological experiences, one has to wonder if this is in fact what so many people think has been going on here. This article concludes with, as our joint year-long investigation has shown, there is compelling evidence linking havana-syndrome to a directed energy weapon wielded by operatives of GRU Unit 29155. Anyway, I'll post the links to this. I look forward to trying to watch this 60 minutes video about this, but I find this very fascinating, obviously, because of my own experience with some kind of mystery hum, though I do think what I probably experienced was some kind of naturally occurring low-frequency tinnitus. But I do absolutely think that there are a wide variety of sources that can cause this kind of phenomena to be experienced, and I do think some of them are weaponized acoustics and electromagnetics that probably not only Russia are using. And don't you think that your own government is above using that on its enemies or its own population, perhaps? So yeah, go to youtube.com/@Ben, B-E-N, and Jordan, and you can see that the sound making people sick, the controversial sound only 2% of people hear. Highly recommend that. And you can go back to the archives of the Anomaly Archives in our Streamathon in 2020, where we had on Steve Kohlhase talking about his experience, his research, and his work with a director to creating a documentary about his experiences, his investigations. And it's fascinating stuff, if not disturbing. Well, probably close to wrapping up, but I just wanted to also recommend, if you haven't, you've probably heard about this new Netflix series about the Danny Casolaro murder-suicide and the Octopus Inslaw Promise software conspiracy. This is so classic 1990s conspiracy culture. And I really, really thoroughly enjoyed this documentary series, despite the fact that it clearly was working with the work of our good friend, dearly departed parapolitical researcher Ken Thomas, and never mentions his name. And I find that frustrating and angering. But over at the Daily Beast, actually, this is reprinted at yahoo.com. He uncovered a rogue CIA conspiracy. Then he was found dead. This is from late February about this new series called American Conspiracy, The Octopus Murders. And I do recommend it, though. I think it seems to me very well done. Not everybody probably agrees, but I liked the style of it and found it very compelling on a lot of levels. And it actually went into a lot more aspects of the case than I was aware of. There's always just so much to investigate when you're into all this weird stuff. And some of these things are a little darker than one wants to dive too deeply into. And there's also this video that came out about a month ago, The Hour's Getting Late, of course, reference to the song, that is an homage to John Judge, and it's a great little video. Highly recommend it.
We have all the potential in the world and all the tools that we need to envision what's right. That's the job of every generation. Even if we don't think we'll win, we must try. If I was to write a book now about what our problems are, what the situation we're in, I think I would title it an old Dylan line. There must be some way out of here, said the joker to the thief. There's so much confusion. I can't get no relief. The businessmen, they drink my wine. The plowmen dig my earth. But none of them along the line know what any of it is worth. Well, no need to get excited now, the thief he kindly spoke. There are many of those among us who think that life is but a joke. But you and I, we've been through that, and that is not our fate. So let us not speak falsely now. The hour is getting late.
And I'll provide a link to that. Well, thank you for joining us, folks. It's been another edition of Anomaly Now, straight out of Austin, Texas. Like I said at the beginning of the show, so much coming up in the near future. Got a lot more time and energy to put into the Anomaly Archives very soon. And I'm looking forward to interacting with all of you much, much more. And there's just so much great stuff coming. I can't wait to share it all with you. So with that, good night. And, where's our links to... Yeah, we'll go out with this. Good night.